A set of ruins stands in the horizon, an ancient city of times long past, in the age of silver. The wind was cold and the explorer could see his own breath. He saw the ruined buildings, overgrown vines and plants inside the ruins of antiquity. Cogs, machines, and marvels of magic and technology still could be seen around, destroyed and unuseful besides its scraps. As he wandered through the streets, he could see wards of old and the buildings half buried beneath the soil. Statues also half buried of ancient kings and queens. Traversing the city, he stopped for a moment, scavenging for materials. He felt lucky finding some trinkets, but he soon stopped as he felt a cold snap on his back. Rising up and looking around, he could see in the darkness inside a falling building. It seemed empty, but he soon realized it. Spotting it in the darkness, he knew he needed to run. Running through the ancient ruins, he began to panic. From the darkness, he could see the monsters of the calamity beginning to awake. Creatures created by the powers that remained. From the ruins, many glowing eyes could see their misshapen forms. They crawled out of their hiding places, mutants or beasts as people called them. As he rushed through the outskirts of the ruin, he noticed they weren't following him. Lucky he was, for they seemed not to hunger. As he jumped into his vessel, he wondered why his people built their homes so close to these creatures just across the river. And now I'm gonna stop writing this story because I'm forgetting how the fuck to draw! Okay, hello there, lads. Back at it again. I think this will be a short one, hopefully. So anyways, besides a small narration demonstrating some pretty flawless art. Anyway, so today's topic is Imperial Origins, or simply Origins of Empires and Nations, as all empires begin in the past as city-states unless you're dealing with stuff that involves politics and the sci-fi. But we are gonna get to there at a moment, later, hopefully. Hopefully. So how do empires start? Well, very much early on, when civilizations begin at the birth of nations during the first villages, and then villages become cities, then cities states, then city-states become kingdoms, and kingdoms become empires. When civilization began 10,000 years ago, the Ice Age had ended. Before that, there could be no civilization, not because people couldn't figure out agriculture, but rather because they had no other choice. Agriculture was nearly impossible in the unpredictable climate of the Ice Age. As the climate warmed and allowing agricultural civilizations to begin, nations began to be born. And here is where the fun begins. At the birth of civilization, the beginning of city-states who grew to become kingdoms and then empires. As a side note, if you want to make an empire in the Bronze Age or Copper Age because of the exotic time frame, be warned, it's not easy as you think. This was an age where even the concept of governments was being developed. Empires at the Copper Age and early Bronze Age were less kingdoms and empires and more city-states with tributaries. This is also a time frame where Persia as an empire is put on a lot. Even if time frame wise it's closer to Rome than to ancient Egypt and Babylon. Back to topic. Basically this is where civilizations began, a city-state growing at the back of agriculture and development of mankind that grew to unite the regions, sometimes, and soon growing to be kingdoms. Rome once started as a city and united this region over time. Even though it was a Latin culture city-state, it grew to overshadow its sister cities. Picture how Athens and Sparta are both Greek, yet have the biggest rivalry in history. If you are from this side of the world, and you're good. Anyways, civilizations generally rise along the river valleys that allow agriculture first, before moving to the hills, lands via pastoral groups or other types. Don't take all my words as being correct. I am oversimplifying as hell. This is a complicated topic, especially since I have to start at the dawn of all things for some fucking reason. Why did I do this? Oh yeah, I forgot. Most people just ignore how civilizations rise in most worlds. So what is the most common rise of civilizations? Well, it heavily depends on your viewpoint. Some theorists believe geography builds strong empires and allows civilizations to rise. Mostly valley, sea lane access, control of channels, large river valleys, bread baskets of fertility, but at the same time some theorists believe that in reality social and institutional power is the ones that generally allow the states to prosper. In reality, and in the outside view of these debates and those within this debate, it roughly looks like this. Believe me when I say it's more fun to watch than you can imagine. But for the sake of the conversation and avoid prolonging this for too long, I'm just gonna throw the middle road because it's my personal preference. Geography could be a good determinator of how your faction may arise and by that extent how empire may grow on the back of the many factors that exist, such as a region's fertility, the ability to trade via its access to the sea, and of course, if your empire is based on a people that is born in a region. Alternatively, a hill, mountain or nomad people could have conquered that area and turn into theirs. Geography can also help understand situations. Greece has not many plains and rivers, but thanks to being vastly coastal and filled with islands, it allowed for trade and naval forces to grow vast. At the same time, one can make the argument that geography, while important, is one part compared to a society's development. Many regions of the world have better geography than many can judge, yet they are so poor and prone to instability, this is often odd. This is complex, but not as bad as it has to do with society growth, and there is a reason why I started this video in the Stone Age of all things, probably because mind has having a stroke. In fiction, meanwhile, this is literally the prime choice for many world builders. This is because, let's face it, it's more interesting of the actions of the people to be their own, or their fault of a few individuals, rather than because geography says you are fucked. And also because not everyone really goes in depth on how geography would affect the world. I mean, let's be honest, let's face it, how many here have an actual degree on this? Anyways, back into actual topic that doesn't involve context or foreshadowing, but a bit more context. Feel free to blame me if you want. This topic is killing me as well. So what about when nations are by that extent, empires are born out of the hands of men, and we focus a little on geography? Well, imagine a people that settles in the edges of steppes. The lands are fertile, the rivers are good for navigation, then the nomads keep burning their cities to the ground. This results in a culture and people that over time develops into a militaristic and expansionist society. This is a way to do it. At the same time, one can make the argument that occupation and establishment of laws via foreign establishment also works. If you're confused by what I mean, it's basically Macedon, the place where Alexander the Alright was born. Was built up partially by the Persians with their own institutions seeking to rule Greece. Not only that, but sometimes institutions and will of states are made by the decision of individuals. Picture how a master bureaucrat or great conqueror can change things on their will. Issues generally enter on what their beliefs are, which can also be a mess as you enter character territory, but that's another story. So, how about we answer the question raised at the beginning of the story? Why do the people of the settled so close to the ruins, especially one so dangerous? Well, as I seek a balanced answer in many things, it's quite obvious the river village has access to fishing, drinkable water, and also farmland. A valley allowing farming and agriculture to be widespread, a river that allows trade to flow from further villages and towns upstream and downstream, and also ruins that can be scavenged. Now, if you wanna do the more social aspect rather than geographical, the people of Orozai that settled the lands believe they descended from the ancient ruins of the old empire. They believe that they were once the rulers of the ancient empire before it fell into the wars against the demons led by Lilithia. In the fall and the ages that followed, they moved around the ruins, settling near them. As the Age of Darkness faded and the Age of Ashes began, their people settled and cleared the lands they believed to be their ancestors' homeland. And so it began, the age of petty city-states and kingdoms. The small villages and hamlets grew into being cities, and cities into great kingdoms. But they small were, as the lands were still rebuilding from the cataclysm of 1,000 years ago. But this age is now changing. From the age of ashes, its growing kingdoms seem to be growing stronger once again. Be it republics or monarchies, a new age is dawning, an age of great conquerors. The people of Orozai are starting to unite. The town of the boy was growing fast, and soon its ruling autocrat would use his influence and resources to try to form a kingdom spanning more than just his city. His people are hardy from the age of ashes. The wars and warlords of the region never gave them a break from the conflict. At the same time, the monsters around hardy them to fight. His autocrat had dreams, and he will use the expertise of his subjects to help them grow into prosperity once more. Back into the ancient age, the age of silver that predated the age of darkness. Okay, second narrative is done, and if you wonder why no images draw this time, it's because I suck. It's not that bad. It's still bad. It works, help. I can also hear you telling me this is not an empire, mate, and yeah, but not all empires begin as empires. They start as small city-states growing into kingdoms, or kingdoms shaping into large states. An empire begins when they start growing past its cultural border, or maybe not. An empire might begin when it becomes overambitious, or big. Honestly, it is more complex than I hoped.
Oh, brother!
Alright, two more interesting things. When an empire begins to grow, this is where stories generally get interesting. Let me put it this way. When it comes to empires growing, you generally write stories about free men or kingdoms or a republic fighting against that growing force, possibly stopping them. But this might not sound interesting, but many ask the question, how would you survive a dying empire? But not many ask, how do you survive a rising one? Think about it, most of the times we generally like to focus on the collapse of an empire to be a more of a survival case, but we never talk much about the rising glory being a danger to you or your characters. But to explain a bit more to writers, an empire seeks expansion for its own security, or to bring its prosperity to others, generally married under nationalism, glory, civilization, or other justifications. Now, with a small side note for you who wants to start big, yes, it does feel like I am skipping, but I prefer the complex. When an empire begins to grow, then vanity to out-of-touch situations generally begin to apply quite quickly. May I tell you a story from RL about how monstrous this can get? About how dangerous a rising empire can be from a single city to a great empire? 1/3 killed, another 1/3, and are you kidding me? Forced into unpaid internship. This was the official description of Julius Caesar about his conquest of Gaul, the region that now is France. Only 1/3 of the population managed to survive his onslaught. Can you imagine being in the 33%? It's difficult but possible, but it's very possible you'll be horrified and afraid. How about another? Persepolis, you thought that was going to Rome again. Persepolis, the capital, well, one of them, dear gods, why you need so many? This was before the concept of separation of powers. Alexander the Great destroyed the city as revenge for the sacking of Athens. Well, at least that was his justification. Revenge against the empire that was at that time imploding. It might seem light, but during the birth of empires, there are bodily many famous crimes, more like famous victims events. Greece was sacked many times and occupied before it got to sack the Persians. I guess you can say our civilization started as the victim. But at the same time, you can't ignore part of the flames. This is the true threat of a rising empire. It might seem like the beginning of a story about defending, but most of the times it's about who will be destroyed next. You can also make the argument that our empire can start as a victim. A city burned, a city destroyed, a city pillaged, but still its people live, and they go back for revenge. Push and pull, cause and effect. You can use that argument. In this setting I made, things start, the apocalypse has finally ended, rampaging through the planet, and the world will begin healing. But at the same time, the sins of men and the others will appear again. And I hope you like it, because I think I'm gonna spend a bit of this, a few friends recommended. Hey, end of video here. This is taking a while, damn, literally having issues with recording and almost some writing. Mostly focusing on life, honestly. Things really got distracted thanks to family and shenanigans. I hope you liked it. Peace.